Folk music is all about telling stories from history or ones that you make up too. This little story right here and song, it's about the most famous leper from the United States and how he constantly escaped from quarantine.
Old boots got soul, and I carry on this way, and we get better every day.
You see, fear is a powerful motivator to public opinion over diseases and other things, but also especially when it comes to diseases, as we're seeing in recent years. And leprosy was one of the most misunderstood and feared diseases for centuries leading up to the 20th century, when a man named John Early helped bring more attention to the treatment and the disease of leprosy. You see, leprosy had been viewed as like this dirty disease since it was featured in the Bible so much. Many thought that it was a punishment only to sinful people, and they were the only folks who would contract it. And it was widely feared because it just made you look really bad. It was a grotesque way that it attacked the human body through like sores and ulcers and things. And many thought that it was really, really contagious, but it was not nearly as contagious as they thought it was. In fact, you had under a 10% chance of contracting it if you ever met somebody with leprosy, and that's only if you had a predisposition in your DNA. So it was kind of hard to pass on to somebody else unless you spent a lot of time around them. John Early was a U.S. soldier who fought in the Philippines during the Spanish-American War, and when he returned home, he visited Washington, D.C., where he noticed he had some of these ulcers on his skin, and he went to the doctor, and the doctor says, "Hey, John, you have leprosy. That's not good." And John Early says, "Yeah, I know that's not good. What can you do for me, Doc?" And the doc says, "There's nothing I can do for you. We're going to have to just take away your rights and put you in quarantine." And that's what happened. They put him in a house in Washington, D.C., didn't allow him to leave, but they did bring in his family, and they built a wall right down the middle of this house so that his wife and kid were on one side and he was on the other side. And he would play mandolin and music through the wall with his family. But as you could imagine, this would get like really old, and it drove him crazy. So he broke out of quarantine and started protesting at different rallies and gatherings and things for increased treatment of people who had leprosy. Because basically, if you had leprosy, you were pretty much deemed dead and put in quarantine. Your will was honored. So like people just had random funerals for you, even though you were in quarantine someplace on a leper colony. Every time John Early would break out and go protest someplace, he'd be arrested and put back into quarantine. But then he would do it again. And he did it so often that he made a deal with the feds that he would run a quarantine leprosy colony in Diamond Point, in the state of Washington. And they would pay him to stay there. But even the conditions there that he was being paid to stay weren't good, so he broke out and did more protesting. And he would continue to do this. He would be taxed for his escapes. He'd be tested with strange treatments. And eventually, they did find a cure for leprosy. Too late for John Early, but now it is a treatable disease, and it doesn't have the stigma attached to it that it used to. So that's good, but there's a lesson in this, and that's like, to me, is that we have to approach all things with understanding, and caution, compassion, and empathy. Because you don't know what somebody's going through, you know? And sometimes it's not as bad as a lot of people make it out to be. So this song is called Bust Out Early John. When I got sick of running, they damned my soul to Diamond Point. Stamped, ulcered, and unclean, and that world-old fear cries testaments to the free. To keep a shiny sheen, and what can a poor sick man without friends or money do? You can call me bust out early John, and you can bet your health I won't be here for long. No. Well, she heard me in the Capitol playing mandolin through the wall. Boys and she'd sing along, but with the dissonance of feds, press and the neighbor folks. Hey, she couldn't find a song, and I'm so tired of it all. If only they let me go home. Yeah, they call me bust out early John. You'll see my feared face again on that Capitol lawn. Yeah. I got the world behind me, I have feelings and tastes. You'll only find me when I want, and I want to show you ain't chased. No. You catch the news, and I'll catch a Route 1 bus. We'll see who catches it worse. All the true stories are sleeping beneath their trucks and laying blind to the purse. And I won't be the last, and I'm certainly not the first. Yeah, they call me bust out early John. You see my feared face again on that Capitol lawn. Yeah. They gave me cold shackles when I needed a warm hand, and called my axe tragedies, and I was poked and prodded, locked up and shipped out too, and taxed for my maladies. No matter the results, I'm cuffed as a carrier. Yeah, they call me bust out early John. When you come back with those meds, you'll find me gone. Men shrink from me, but only when informed. You'll only find me when I want, and I want to say you've been warned. Yeah. Yo, that's a true story about John Early, one of the most famous U.S. lepers.